When Kia Motors was first launched in India back in 2017, we Indians were pretty skeptical about the Korean automaker. Although its mother company Hyundai has always been a part of the Indian market, we were skeptical about the Korean brand. That being said, once the brand did officially launch its first product, the Seltos in India, it has done incredible numbers. If you don't believe the numbers, just look at how many Seltoses and Sonnets there are out on the Indian roads. With their latest launch, Kia Motors is going to try to recreate the same magic that they did with the Seltos with this, the all-new Kia Carens. Do you think the Korean automaker will be able to do so? In today's video, we're going to find exactly that. But before we do that, why don't you like, share and subscribe to Top Gear Magazine India for all of your latest automotive news. Let us begin on the outside. Kia neither terms the Carens as an SUV or an MPV, but say that it is rather a combination of the best of both worlds. But in reality, if you ask me, the Carens does have quite a distinctive look that MPVs usually have. That being said, the Carens is a pretty handsome looking vehicle. At the front, the design elements are extremely clear and sharp. What catches your eye are the 3D design on the piano black trim and the garnish of chrome all around the exterior of the Carens. I must also point your attention to the headlight cluster with this gorgeous looking DRLs, which Kia claims are from a constellation of stars. Right below is where you have the sharp looking headlights with the funky looking fog light housing. Moving along to the side and you notice these strong shoulder lines. Furthermore, these butch looking wheel arches contain the 16-inch alloy wheels. One thing I would like to point out is that the Carens has a longest wheelbase of 2780 mm in its class. In comparison, it is 20 mm longer than the Hyundai Alcazar 2. Another thing most Indians would appreciate is the amount of ground clearance that you have on offer, which can rival quite a few SUVs as well. Moving to the rear, and things are pretty simple here as well. Again, you have a decent garnish of chrome towards the bottom, but what stands out here is the LED taillights with this light bar running across the width of the tailgate. Step inside the vehicle and you're instantly welcomed by the high quality materials used inside the Carens. Everything you see, feels plush and premium and posh. There is an ample use of soft touch leather and high quality plastics on the inside. Does make it feel quite upmarket. Just like the outside, the interior trim pieces are also finished in gloss black with a chrome garnish near the AC knobs, center console and steering wheel. There is one niggle that I personally have with gloss black interior pieces is that they tend to scratch easily and hold a lot of fingerprints. So just like every other Kia sold in India, this too is loaded to the brim with features. Things such as this 10.25-inch infotainment screen, this digital driver's display, 64 ambient lights and a lot more. If you want to know about every single feature that the Kia Carens offers, including all the tech features that it has on offer, why don't you click the link in the description below or click the pop-up icon above and watch our video on the Exhibit Group's channel where they have covered every single tech feature that the Kia Caren has. Now that we're done with the front row, let's move to the third row because that is something that you all want to know about before moving to the second row of seats. Now I must admit that getting into the third row of seats is a pretty easy ordeal thanks to this button that you have, the electronically foldable seats. But actually sitting here does feel kind of uncomfortable. For somebody of my height, that I'm 6 feet tall, my legs don't have a lot of support and my thighs don't have a lot of support either. But what I do have is a decent amount of backrest which can be reclined when required. If you ask me, over long journeys, I would much rather be seated in the front and have kids sitting in the back seat here. I must admit that although the Kia Carens boasts of having the most amount of wheelbase, you do feel a little cramped when you're on the third row, but not on the second or the first row. Now that we've covered the third row of seats, let's move to the second row of seats, which I must admit is pretty comfortable. In this captain seats configuration, you do have a lot of space and these seats can be moved forward and backwards and tilted as per choice. Although I must admit that because of this air purifier, you are robbed of a little bit of knee room, which can be a little annoying over long distances. That being said, this seat does have a decent amount of thigh support, decent amount of headroom, and with these large windows, you won't feel claustrophobic when you're sitting on the inside. Also, when it gets really sunny, you can just put out these sun blades and relax in comfort. Now this is something that has plagued almost every single 7-seater car sold in India. That is the boot space they have on offer. For instance, the Kia Carens offers a boot space of 216 litres, which yes, is just enough to carry most of your weekend shopping. But if you do want more space, you have to fold the rear seats. So if you want more space, you're always welcome to fold the seats and get more space or carry some questionable goods. Nothing to see in there. Now this is the most important bit of the Kia Carens that you all might be wanting to know about. That is, how does it drive? Well, what I have with me today is the 1.4 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine that you find in the Kia Seltos as well. Again, just like the Kia Seltos, this produces 140 horsepower and 242 Nm of torque and is mated to a 7-speed DCT gearbox. If you talk about the performance, if you've been driving a Seltos, this is pretty much the same because the engine and the gearbox is pretty much the same. So if you ask me, performance, yes, it has adequate amount of performance, but you can't expect to do something that can beat a sports car because again, this is a family hauler. But if you ask me, it does do most of the things that you expect it to do pretty well. When you do smash the throttle, the engine does respond. Because of the gearbox, because of the 7-speed DST gearbox, you do have a pretty decent amount of shift without having to really feel a jerk while you're shifting. But I must agree that yes, I would want a little more juice out of this engine. 140 horsepower does feel enough, but can feel a little less sometimes when you're caught out. That being said, cruising at highway speeds is pretty easy, and when you're in the city, it does offer pretty good mileage as well. Another thing that I like to point is the suspension and handling that this car offers. This has extremely good suspension. Like, I'm on a bad patch of road right now, but you really can't feel any of those bumps and modulations on the inside. Now I must say, because this car is catered more towards people who want to take their family somewhere, the car doesn't handle like a dream, and you do feel a little bit of body roll when you're taking a corner a little too hard. That being said, when you do drive it gently and drive it carefully, it does drive pretty well. The steering feedback is pretty decent, the brakes are really good, suspension is good. So yeah, I would say all around good package. Another thing I must admit is the NVH levels in the petrol car that I'm driving right now. You don't have a lot of engine noise until you're really accelerating and high up in the rev range. Speaking about the driving position, you are sitting pretty high and you do have a nice clear vision out of the road, and you don't have a lot of blind spots as well. Plus, thanks to these mirrors, you do tend to see around you pretty clearly with those large windows and these mirrors as well. So if you ask me, if you're looking to buy a petrol car, this certainly should be one of your considerations. Kia has very kindly offered me to experience both variants of the Kia Carens, the petrol and the diesel engine on offer. What I was driving earlier was the 1.4 litre petrol engine. What I have with me is the 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine that produces 115 horsepower, 250 Nm of torque. Again, this is mated to this 6-speed manual gearbox and is also available with a 6-speed automatic. Just like I said with the petrol car, this does feel extremely refined, and yes, compared to the petrol car, thanks to this diesel engine, it does have a little more punch on offer. If you are somebody who likes to drive on the highway more, the diesel car is the right way to go. Yes, I agree that you do have a little bit of noise that you get on the inside, but that is very minimal. The NVH levels are not extremely bad in this car. And again, like I said before, the fit and finish is extremely good. The ride and handling is pretty much similar to the petrol powered car. There's no difference between them. The power on offer is, yes, slightly better thanks to the 250 Nm of torque. Yes, the power is down, but you do have more torque, which is beneficial for when you want to do overtakes. Changing the gear is extremely slick and the clutch doesn't feel too heavy. So when you're driving in the city, you won't be having a heavy left leg at the end of your journey. Oh, there must be one more thing that I must mention about this car, and that's something that I really liked about this car, is the fact that because this is a MPV, not technically, Kia doesn't call it an MPV, but technically because this is an MPV, this has ample amount of storage within the car. You have multiple places to put your bottles, you have a lot of place to put small stuff like your mobile phone, you even have a place where you can keep your change. You have a lot of cup holders on offer. So yeah, to be honest, this is a pretty complete package in terms of the stuff it does have to offer. So if you ask me, if I have to choose between the petrol car and the diesel car, yes, the petrol car is a little fun to drive, very slightly, because again, these cars are not like they're fun to drive cars to begin with. But yeah, it does offer just that little bit more compared to this car. But if I have to go over a long journey, I would definitely pick this car over the petrol car any day. If you look at the overall dimensions of the car, thanks to the way Kia has managed to make the steering geometry, you don't really feel how long or cumbersome. You don't really feel the car being too cumbersome when you have to maneuver it in the city. And yes, when you're out on the highway, yes, you would enjoy the fact that it is a pretty long car. So you can have your occupants sitting comfortably, not so much, but yeah, they'll be pretty happy compared to competitors. There is one thing I would like to give special mention to, is the fact that Kia has offered this blue leather on most of the things that you see, including the steering wheel, the dashboard, which make it feel a lot more premium compared to the black plastics or black leather that you're used to seeing in other cars. So this was every single detail that you didn't know about the all-new Kia Carens. Well, there is only one thing I cannot tell you, which is the price, because Kia hasn't officially unveiled the car in terms of the pricing just yet. Okay, I must admit that yes, looking at the competitors, which is the XL6 and the Hyundai Alcazar, I'm having a really tough time putting this against those, because honestly the XL6 does feel pretty outdated and the Alcazar does feel pretty cramped on the interiors. If you ask me, if you're looking to buy a next 7-seater family hauler, this should certainly be one of your considerations, because it does tick all the right boxes and is an all-round good package. With that, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Top Tier Magazine India. This is Yash Sunil signing out. Goodbye.